Good evening, everyone. Before we begin tonight's meeting, I would like to remind everyone to turn off their cell phones and electronic devices. I would like to state that the school board meeting is taking place on Treaty 1 land and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. Call to order and roll call. Mr. Cochin.
Roll call for the regular board meeting of Winnipeg School Division for November 2nd, 2020. Trustee Adele. Here. Trustee Reed.
Here.
Trustee Murdoch. Trustee Dumont.
Here.
Trustee Shikowski.
Here.
Trustee Chen.
Here.
Trustee Broughton.
Here.
Approval of the agenda moved by Trustee Broughton, seconded by Trustee Chen, that the agenda be approved. Are there any additions?
Yes, Chair. Trustee Broughton here. I have an addition.
Okay, can I get a?
I can move it for you.
Okay.
I'll move that a verbal report from Finance and Personnel Committee be added to reports.
Can I get a seconder, please?
I will second that. Trustee Reed.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. We're moving to delegations now. I would like to call upon Ms. Keller and Ms. Zimban-Dubois to begin their presentation to the board. In accordance with procedural bylaw 1263, section 32.8, you shall be granted 10 minutes to make your presentation to the board regarding school resource officers. Go ahead, please. Louise, are you there?
I am. I'm waiting for Kate to join us. She was
Okay.
going to be joining me on as part of this presentation. I don't know if she's in the waiting room.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Louise. It's Brenda. I have invited Kate, but it looks like she's not online.
Okay. I wonder if I should try texting her on herself.
Sure, she needs to be at her computer with the program open. If she's not able to do that, in the meantime, maybe you could proceed with your presentation and I will try to contact her this way.
Okay. Part of the way that we'd sequenced it was that she was going to be presenting first. I'll just send her a quick message. Okay, just got a message from her saying she's having trouble signing in. So I'll go ahead with my presentation then. Okay. Well, thanks for allowing me to present. So my name is Louise Mbandumwe. I am co-director of Seed Winnipeg, but I'm also a member of the Police Accountability Coalition, which is a coalition that has recently been formed. And I'm here to speak to the issue of the investment in the School Resource Officer program. Like many immigrants, my predisposition has been to have a really positive perspective of the police in Canada. I think all of us badly want to believe that the police here are fundamentally different than law enforcement back home, and that they are here to truly serve and protect our communities. So when I first moved into Winnipeg, I was really impressed by the community initiatives that the police had undertaken in terms of reaching out to community, supportive of the SRO program, in terms of building bridges between the community and police and more understanding. However, over the years, through my own direct experience, and probably even more so hearing many accounts from Black and Indigenous community members, particularly youth, about their treatment at the hands of police, I am recognizing that there are some deep-seated systemic issues that need to be urgently addressed, which I think raise some questions about the investment in the SRO program. What I've begun to realize is that the community engagement efforts that I was so strongly supportive of are being treated more as a PR exercise by the police, and that they have been resistant to truly hearing, acknowledging, and acting on the critical feedback they have been receiving from community. And this view, I think, is becoming more and more broadly held within African communities as part of developing the policy brief that I believe you all received. I engaged with the leadership of the African Communities of Manitoba, Inc., which is the umbrella organization of ethnocultural organizations, of African ethnocultural organizations. And the level of distrust and the fracturing of the relationships between the communities and the police is something that is growing, and it didn't start out that way. I think most of these leaders had a predisposition, same as me, to want to trust and work alongside the police. So in the policy brief, you'll notice that there's close to 100 organizations that signed on. Many of them are Black-led organizations who endorsed the recommendation in the brief calling for an immediate end to the presence of police units in public schools, colleges, and universities. I don't believe that the SRO program can achieve the core goal of strengthening partnerships between and among police, schools, and the community until they do three things. They need to hear, they need to acknowledge, and they need to take steps to address the systemic issues that have been and continue to be identified by the community. I was disappointed that the evaluation that was conducted in 2014 of the SRO program did not have any disaggregated data to truly capture the perspective of students and parents from Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I think that it is telling that in this evaluation of the SRO program that the youth who already felt safe felt safer because of the SRO program, while the youth who felt unsafe actually felt less safe with the presence of the police in the schools. And I think that if a true equity-based evaluation was done and dug deeper into dug deeper into looking at and really centering the voices of Black and Indigenous students, as well as people of color, and as well as parents. I think that that we would find out a lot more about the true value of the program and the real perspectives, as opposed to looking at sort of aggregate data. So at its best, to the extent that the program creates a sense of safety for the students, and certainly there were students, including students that felt unsafe initially and felt safer because of the SRO program. One of the things that was really reinforced for me by one of the youth members that's on the Police Accountability Coalition, and he spoke really forcefully to this, and it really struck me and rang true, is that what that does is creates a false sense of security when the youth actually end up encountering the police outside of the school and on the streets, and when they're treated very differently than their white colleagues. After we presented our policy brief to the police board, we had a number of people, Black youth, who courageously stepped forward and spoke directly about their experiences of being racially profiled by the police, and contrasting that against coworkers that were white and had been treated, or friends that had been treated very differently. The chief of police refused to acknowledge the issues that were raised. He dismissed them by saying that people were entitled to their views, and essentially invalidated and denied their experience, and I felt was essentially saying that they were being untruthful. So instead of trying to build authentic relationships with our communities, the police are continuing to treat community initiatives like the SRO program as a PR exercise, because until they're willing to look at some of the underlying systemic issues that community members have been raising for years, it's not going to work. One of the very legitimate criticisms that has really run true in terms of attempts to achieve truth and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples is that often people want to skip over the very uncomfortable and disturbing truths of our history and our contemporary reality, and jump right to reconciliation. And I see the SRO program as operating along a similar vein, an attempt to build relationships with communities without acknowledging the truth of the feedback they have received and making a commitment to systemic change. Until these steps are taken and the police are able to genuinely build trust in our communities, the SRO program has no place in our schools. Furthermore, I think a rigorous...
Can I just interrupt you for a sec? You have 2 minutes left in your presentation.
Thank you, Betty. Furthermore, a rigorous equity-based evaluation is needed, one that centers the voices of Black, Indigenous, and people of color, to see if there is sufficient evidence to determine that the cost of this program, which is substantial, is justified when compared to the alternate use of these same funds.
Was that the end?
That's the end.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I want to thank you for making the presentation. A motion isn't required to receive the presentation. Trustees, do you have any questions? Jennifer? Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you, Louis, for your presentation. It's good to see you in the board meeting. Your involvement in the PAC, Police Accountability Coalition, the testimonials from the testimonials about the SRO, where do they come from? Are they coming from students, parents, or they just come from community members? So this is my first question. My second question is, what kind of barriers do you see for the newcomer students and parents to participate in another evaluation that is led by the WSD? My third question is a quick question. How many organizations in support of the PAC recommendations? Could you list some of them? Thank you.
Yep. So could you repeat the second question?
What kind of barriers do you see the newcomer students and parents participate in another evaluation that is led by the WSD?
Alright, so to answer your first question, the recommendations were developed by initially consulting with the members of the Police Accountability Coalition, but then we also worked hard to reach out beyond that group to the leadership of ACOMI, which eventually joined the coalition as well. And with people like Damon Johnson, who heads up the Aboriginal Council. And so it was an iterative process where we went through an initial set of recommendations, fed that back to community, and then community fed that back to us in terms of additions, things that they wanted to change. And so it went back and forth. So it took about two months to refine the recommendations, but the voices that came through really strongly in terms of the specific recommendation around police officers in schools and universities and colleges, that came from youth, and that came from their direct experience of encountering police. So that was very much a youth, it wasn't something that was on the initial list when we first started developing the recommendations. And so that was definitely a learning for me as I was working through the process. In terms of the second question, I think there are obviously going to be issues related to trust, related to language. I don't think a paper-based questionnaire is necessarily always the way to go. So I would encourage working with an evaluator that can also get at some of the more qualitative comments in more of a focus group type format, and that can think creatively about how to overcome language barriers. So I've done similar research myself using community-based researchers that are known and trusted in the community that can help translate some of the concepts into a different cultural context. And so I think it needs to be done with care and with real deliberation in order to actually get at the truth, as opposed to doing sort of your regular scientifically based, I put that in quotation marks, survey, similar to what was done in 2014. If you're really going to get the rich kind of data that I would suggest. And then your third question, I'm trying to remember what it was. Sorry.
You had a problem. So how many organizations in support of?
Oh, okay, yeah. So right now we're at 98 organizations, and it's a mix of Black-led ethnocultural community organizations. There's some faith organizations on there. There are nonprofit organizations from community-based agencies. So it's a real cross-section and mixture. And there's still other organizations that are interested in signing on. So it's gaining momentum.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I would like to thank you very much for doing your presentation, Ms. Dubois. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Betty.
Okay, bye-bye, Louise.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about the technical glitches that I guess that's the world we live in right now. I hope everybody stays safe.
Yes, you too. Bye-bye. Okay, so reading and confirming of the minutes, that the minutes dated October 19th.
We have Kate here.
It was a shared presentation. They were supposed to present together.
I'm sorry. Good evening, everybody. Our understanding was we were sharing 10 minutes, and so we were going to take 5 minutes each.
Oh, Louise took 10 minutes. She took the whole 10.
Okay. Don't worry about it. Because I was having technical issues, she probably figured she had to take it all. So no worries. I'm sure she mentioned that we're preparing a brief anyways. So thank you all very much for your time.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kate.
Are we able to accommodate? Are we able to accommodate? Or
No,
considering
because
we only have,
Louise did both the presentations, like both parts of it.
Do we have the guest still on the line, Chair?
I don't see her anymore on the line.
Yes, she's
Is
still
she-
in.
Is she still in?
Yes.
You wanna-
I move that we suspend the rules to allow the delegation to have 10 minutes to speak to provide her presentation to the board.
Can I get a
I
seconder?
I second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Thank you all very much. I will be brief. I will not take 10 minutes. I very much appreciate the suspensions of the rules. So I'm Kate Kaler. I'm with the Social Planning Council of Winnipeg. That's an organization that has 100 years of experience of advocating for a safer and more just, equitable community. And we have been advocating for crime prevention through social development for eons. Before that, I was with the John Howard Society of Manitoba, and as such, I'm still actually the chair of both the Gang Action Interagency Network as well as the Restorative Justice Association of Manitoba. So you know that a brief is coming, and that's wonderful. I guess I wanted to look at the cost of the SRO program. And again, I'm sorry I did not get all of Louise's, so I hope I'm not repeating something. But what we were able to find is it's about $8 million over 6 semesters. So there is, and so that's about 2.3 million a year. And we think there's 3.4 million from education itself, 1.7 from the provincial basket towards corrections and justice, and then the city through the WPS through their standing budget is about 3 million. So the question for all of that money is it working? Have they met the objectives? Louise has looked at outlined some of the problems with the 2014 evaluation. And just speaking as somebody from the not-for-profit sector, when I look at that report, we don't get to talk about, when we're proving our worth to our funders, we don't get to talk about outputs and feelings. We actually have to prove our outcomes if we're going to get our funding. So the objectives are making schools safer, improve relationship between police and students, educating students about the law, and helping students solve their problems. So the side that are in favor of SROs will tell you nothing but good stories. The side who are against the SROs, you know, will tell you the negative stories. That's not empirical evidence. So is the fact that they have not been able to meet all of those objectives for everyone the SRO's fault? Of course not. It's a reflection of our society. It's a reflection of our communities. It's a reflection of where we have decided to put our funds for a very long time now in all of our systems. So there is unfortunately a move to be seen to be doing something as opposed to be doing the right thing. So Manitoba has embraced the tough on crime approach, not with just the current government, with the past government as well. And we over-incarcerate. More than any other province, we incarcerate people at an incredible cost, an incredible human cost. And the sad fact is that about 70 to 80% of those people are Indigenous. And the next demographic is people of color. So we know we already over-police and over-incarcerate people of color. Our other systems, unfortunately, also show the same sorts of criminalization. The CFS system and even our health system, where we see mental health and addictions criminalized as opposed to treated. We don't spend the money where it needs to be spent. So the other point here in Manitoba is we're the province with the highest child poverty rates. We have over 85,000 kids who live in poverty in Manitoba. Here in Winnipeg Centre, if we look at the maps based on 2016 census data, when you overlay poverty with indigeneity and with people of color, the dots just get darker and darker and darker in those concentrated spots. So Winnipeg Centre actually beats out Jane and Finch. Not a great title. We don't want to, for poverty rates. We are actually, Winnipeg Centre is the urban riding with the highest rates of child poverty. I mentioned this because I'm sure, as you all know and you've discussed, is that in 2017, they decided to get rid of their SRO program. And they haven't seen an uptake in either safety incidents or safety concerns. The lens they took on that, and the way they did that is they took an equity lens on it. They didn't go with the majority of respondents. They went with who was most affected by the program. and with negative effects, and looking at it through that lens. One of the key differences in Toronto, though, is actually the police, the entire SRO budget, from my understanding, came out of the police budget. So the school, in ending the program, didn't actually free up any other internal resources to pay for what they would prefer to spend their money on. Here in Winnipeg, that's very different. You could actually take that $3.4 million and spend it elsewhere. You might even be able to get the province to chip in the $1.7 million and spend that on what we know, what works, which actually builds community, which actually creates safer schools, which is on an actual resource teacher. Which is in engaging with the other community organizations and community supports out there, the ones that are actually trained in restorative justice practices and could actually do that work. And then just how many kids could you actually feed and make them feel that they are welcome and included in their schools at all times. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keller. Trustees, is there any questions? Trustee Chen?
Thank you, Kate, for your presentation, taking your time to attend our board meeting. I have three questions. One is you kind of touched on what alternatives you mentioned, food, resource teachers. What other, maybe you can expand, what other programs you would like to see the funding to be reallocated if possible? My second question is, speaking for as a nonprofit organization, what kind of barriers for newcomer and Indigenous students and parents to participate in the process of evaluation? My third question is about cultural training, police officers' cultural training. Again, as a nonprofit organization that has been working on this issue, what's your thoughts on whether or not police officers are receiving adequate cultural training? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So as far as other alternatives go, again, engaging with the other community organizations that are on the ground, actually working with these same families that the schools and the neighborhoods are working on, they would actually be able to tell you more about what they offer. But a key one is obviously clearly mentorship. We know it works. We know that youth who are struggling, they need a connection and someone to guide them. So I would highly recommend mentorship and any number of organizations such as GAIN, such as OPK, such as Hood FAMS, any of the organizations are out there doing that work to try and keep the youth in school and make school an actual positive experience for the youth. It's not enough to get them through the doors. They actually have to feel like they've had success. It's not something they survived. It's something that they thrived in. So as far as the participating in evaluation, it is extremely difficult for people who are in poverty or who come from other marginalized communities, who come from communities in which they're not used to or even afraid to express their opinion. If they're coming from a country where authority is extremely problematic. And of course, there's just language barriers and understanding. And also some people are simply, they're evaluated too much and then they don't actually see the results of what they've been asked and what happens. So they get burnt out and they just are gun shy of it. They're like, why would I participate in that? You're not going to listen to me anyway. So those are barriers that need to be overcome, definitely. And then the third one is the cultural training. I believe I work with police officers all the time. They're out there, they believe they're out there doing the right thing, and they want to do the right thing. But the fact of the matter is that there is just internal bias. And when you look at the actual numbers, you just can't help see the results in it. You just can't help see when the number, who's getting stopped by police, who's getting arrested, who's getting charged more than other ones. And it is always racialized people. And when you're talking about different cultures, and again, the idea of a police officer may be the nicest guy on the face of the earth, but that uniform is just terrifying to somebody who comes from another culture where that uniform has meant fear and even death in times. So I guess that's all I can say to those.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
I have my hand up, Chair.
Okay. Trustee Broughton?
Ms. Keller, thank you very much for presenting to the board this evening. Very much appreciate your presentation, your perspective, and you sharing your voice, not only on behalf of yourself, but countless others that have sometimes difficulty sharing their voice. I just wanted to kind of ask more of a technical question about where you sourced your financial data, because I'm concerned that there's some inaccuracies in comparison to what Winnipeg School Division spends on the SRO program. Annually, I believe our spending is closer to $500,000. So I'm just curious about the source of your information.
Thank you very much. So what it was, we sourced it from a city report. I'll have to get you that report, and that's we do want that information because we've been digging for it and we've been trying to find exactly how much gets spent. So we have two different. There's another source that says it's about a one overall it's about $1 million, but then we found this other city report that breaks it down in that fashion, that 3.4 million from the education. But again, that's over 8 semesters, so that's 3 years. So I don't know if that makes the math, but I would love to actually get that data from you.
Excellent, thank you. I believe that our budget data related to this subject has been made publicly available over the past number of years, but I'll ask our chair if she can follow up on that request. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Seeing none, I would like to thank you, Ms. Keller, for presenting at the school board this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
So reading and confirming of minutes, that the minutes dated October 19th, 2020 be approved as distributed. Moved by Trustee Reed, seconded by Trustee Shinkowski. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Reading of communications and petitions, moved by Trustee Chen, seconded by Trustee Shinkowski, that October 15th, 20 letter from Winnipeg Teachers Association requesting the board to return to the negotiations with Winnipeg School Division bus drivers, and that this letter be received as information. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Presentation and consideration of reports. Hold on a sec, please. Okay. So Superintendent's report number 11, 2020, the Fresh Start Project, a supportive transition program for young adults, Gordon Bell High School, 2020-2021. Moved by Trustee Broughton that the proper officers of the division be authorized to enter into an agreement with the Manitoba Children and Youth Opportunities, MB4 Youth, for funding in the amount of $111,751 for the Fresh Start program at Gordon Bell High School for the 2020-2021 school year, seconded by Trustee Reed. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Manitoba Adult Language Training Initiative Language Development Multi-LT Program, Winnipeg Adult Education, moved by Trustee Dumont, seconded by Trustee Reed, that the proper officers of the division be authorized to enter into an agreement with the Manitoba Education and Training skills and development partnerships in the amount of $254,200 for the Manitoba Adult Language Training Initiative Language Development Multi-LD Program for the period 2020-2021 school year. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Interdivisional Program for Students with Autism, IPSA, Program Funding 2020-2021, moved by Trustee Reed, seconded by Trustee Chen, that the proper officers of the division be authorized to enter into a program funding agreement with Manitoba Education and Training for the delivery of the interdivisional program for students with autism in the amount of $176,537 for the 2020-2021 school year. All in favor?
I have a question, sorry.
Okay. Trustee Chen?
The decrease, it says that the decrease of the funding, does it also does it decrease the number of students that we support?
Through the chair, yes, it was 7 students last year and it's 4 students this year. It's in the last paragraph of the description before the recommendation.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Interdivisional Student Services, ISS Program Funding 2020-2021, moved by Trustee Reed, seconded by Trustee Dumont, that the proper officers of the division be authorized to enter into an agreement with Manitoba Education and Training in the amount of $3,599,876 for the delivery of the Interdivisional Student Services Program for the period April 1st, 2020 to March 31st, 2021. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Ashland School Window Replacement, moved by Trustee Chen, seconded by Trustee Shinkowski, that the tender of U-Build Inc. to supply all material and perform all work in connection with the window replacement project at Ashland School be accepted in accordance with the plans and specifications therefore for the total amount of $324,161 being the tender price, including provincial sales tax, excluding goods and services tax, and that the proper officers of the division be authorized to enter into a contract with U-Build Inc. for the carrying out of the work. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. The superintendent's report. Okay, hold on a sec. Moved by Trustee Reed, seconded by Trustee Dumont, that the Policy Program Committee Report number 2-2020 dated October 19th, 2020 be received as information. Trustee Reed, do you have any recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. I have several recommendations. The first recommendation is that the terms of reference for the Policy Program Committee be approved.
Can I get a seconder, please? I just told I can't see any.
I'll second that, Chair.
Okay. So Trustee Broughton is seconding. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. So the second one is this one.
Chair, would you like me to read
Yes,
the 3 recommendations at once or all separate?
yes, all
Okay,
at once, please.
all at once, absolutely. The Policy Program Committee recommends, and I so move, that Trustee Dumont be appointed as Chair of the Advisory Council on Indigenous Education for the 2020-2021 school year. I also recommend and move that Trustee Linda Schakowsky be appointed as a member of the Advisory Council on Indigenous Education for the 2020-2021 school year. And thirdly, that Trustee Chris Broughton, a member of the Finance Personnel Committee, be appointed as a member of the Advisory Council on Indigenous Education for the 2020-2021 school year.
So we need seconders for each of those motions, right? One seconder. So can I get a seconder, please, for all those motions? I can't see any pictures of anyone, so can people just,
I'll second that, Chair.
okay. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
I have one more recommendation.
Okay,
The Policy Program Committee recommends, and I so move, that policy IGABA Aboriginal Education be renamed IGABA Indigenous Education, and that policy IGABA Indigenous Education be approved.
so
I
can
would
I
love
get
to
it?
second that, Chair.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. So we're moving to Building Transportation Committee report. Number 2-2020 dated October 27th, moved by Trustee Dumont, seconded by Trustee Chen, that the Building Transportation Committee report number 2-2020 dated October 27th, 2020 be received as information. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Trustee Dumont, do you have any recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we do. I recommend and move that the revised terms of reference for the Building Transportation Committee be approved.
So moved by Trustee Dumont, seconded by Trustee Chen, that the revised terms of reference for the Transportation Committee be approved. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
I recommend and move that Brock Corden School receive funding in the amount of $20,000 from the Universal Building Fund for the Outdoor Rejuvenation Project.
Seconded by Trustee Chen. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
And I recommend and move that Sister McNamara School receive funding in the amount of $20,000 from the Universal Building Fund for the Outdoor Classroom Project.
Seconded by Trustee Shinkowski. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
So this was the one Chris said 6.4 WTA for.
So that's what,
So finance person.
this one?
Yeah. And then he can speak to it.
So we did this one.
Yeah.
So this was an addition, 6.4. Trustee Broughton, the verbal financial report.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I just want to bring to attention to the board work that your Finance and Personnel Committee did earlier this evening at our meeting dated today, November 2nd, 2020. This information was a little bit more timely and time sensitive, and we felt that it was best to bring this to your attention tonight. I don't know how many trustees may have had a chance to review the agenda and the supporting documents for the Finance and Personnel Committee, so I'll just give a brief overview. It has been discussed between the board's committee with WTA as well as senior administration in their work with the WTA, that issue of mental health and wellness for teachers has been front of mind, as well for administration, front of mind for all of our staff in the Winnipeg School Division. And so it was recommended and supported by the committee that a grant be provided to WTA, as well as the administration work with our other bargaining groups to provide wellness events and programming for school professional development and curriculum work, and that these grants for the WTA total $12,500, and the administration would look at an additional $12,500 for working with other bargaining groups to support other employees within the Winnipeg School Division. And so it's recommended and moved that the administration proceed with working with our labor groups on a wellness program. Given the complexities of the pandemic, we would like to see that move occur in the very near future. So that is the recommendation from your Finance and Personnel Committee.
Can I get a seconder, please? Trustee Dumont seconds. Is there any questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Was that it, Trustee Broughton?
Yes, that is our only item. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to new business. 7.1, MSBA MUST fund representatives. So the term for the MSBA Manitoba Universal Standards Trust Fund representative is ending November 30th, 2020. Is there a volunteer, or moved by Trustee Dumont? Well, we need someone to volunteer. Is there anyone interested? Or is someone nominating someone?
I have to declare conflict of interest.
Trustee Broughton, you have your hand raised.
Yes, Chair. I just point out that I've currently served in that role. I don't mind continuing in that role, but I'm more than willing to have other members of the board experience the MUST fund.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who is interested in this position? I honestly cannot see anyone else who is volunteering for this position.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you very, very much. Trustee, is there someone else trying to?
Yeah, Trustee Chen.
Trustee Chen?
I would like to nominate Trustee Broughton.
Oh, thank you very much. Can I get
I
a
will second it.
Wonderful, thank you. All those in favor? I don't see any opposition. That Trustee Broughton be named as the MSBA Manitoba Universal Standards Trust Fund representative for the term commencing December 1st, 2020. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very, very much, Trustee Broughton, for stepping up to do that. Number 8, agenda information. Moved by Trustee Shinkowski, seconded by Trustee Chen, that Information Correspondence IC32-20 to IC35-20 be received as information. Is there any discussion? Seeing none.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Yes. Just on the letter of Western School Soil Management Project. I
Okay.
just want to briefly share my thoughts as a trustee who represents the Western School and Western area, and who followed up on the issue. I would like to praise the WSD and our building department for taking the immediate steps to address the recommendation from the province report. I know a lot of work has taken place during the past months among all the COVID pandemic things. And it shows that WSD administration and the board commit to the safety of our children. However, I would like to express my concern that the province is choosing to proceed with the management option rather than full remediation, which would resolve the issue once for all, without putting additional costs on the WSD. So this is my main concern. The cost difference between two options is approximately $73,000. So my question to the province is, to the provincial government is the price difference the determining factor in this decision, or should we do everything we can to resolve the lead at Western School once and for all? Are we confident that this plan will finally resolve this issue? I just want to share this thought with the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Trustee Chen, did you want us to compose a letter to the province asking this, or is this just your concerns that you want us to discuss in here?
I understand that the finance board, the province finance board, directed us to proceed with the management option. And I know our building department has been in talk with the province. If the board, that's my I have my concern and my question to the provincial government, but I would like to see what the board would like to do. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Chen. Do any of the other trustees have thoughts on this, on the Weston School soil concern? If you do so, just please speak up and say your name. I'm not seeing any concerns or hearing any concerns, Trustee Chen.
Yeah, that'll be fine. But just the management option will have additional costs on the WSD in the future. The province will fund all the current costs, but any future costs will be on the WSD, and that is my concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So can I get a motion? We have a motion by Trustee Shinkowski, a seconded by Trustee Chen. We had a discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Number 9, business matters as defined in Rule 44.7, moved by Trustee Dumont, seconded by Trustee Shinkowski, that the board move into business matters as defined in Rule 44.7.
Thank you, Chair. In accordance with procedure